Our guest speaker today is Peggy Carvalho, an Englishwoman who served in the British Air Force during World War II, married an American man of Portuguese descent, and traveled to this country with their 2-year-old daughter on the Queen Elizabeth, landing in New York on the day after Christmas, 1946. After spending some time in Pennsylvania, they moved back to New York and settled on Long Island, where Peggy not only raised 4 children, but she worked at the Webster Estate on St. Mark's Lane in Islip for 32 years. Peggy is well known for her singing and has been singing in her churches since 1973. I'm happy to introduce Peggy Carvalho.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, please forgive me. Before I came over here, I was born in Yorkshire. I left there when I was 9 and lived around London. And then when I was 16, almost 17, well actually 17, I joined the Air Force, the British Air Force, which is the WAAF, Women's Royal Air Force. And I was there for 4 years. I was stationed at Waterbeach, Cambridge, when I received basic training. This included marching, what we called square bashing, that was slang, and drilling. During this time, we were interviewed to determine what skills we had, and then tested to see what we were fit for. In my case, I was trained to be a balloon operator, which is like a winch. And you sit back in the chair and you work for the balloons during the war and coming over London, and you pulled, you know, the ropes or whatever it was. It's such a long time ago. Well, we also got word that one young woman had broken her neck doing that, so they took all the women off these particular operating, you know, balloon machines. And then they trained you for something else, which went to be a cook in the officers' mess. So I trained there. That's how I learned to cook. And the officers, that was the time when there was a lot of bombing. They'd come home, have a meal, out again. Come home, have a meal. They barely got any sleep. It was continuous bombing, continuous. And then once one day I was going to train to be a nurse, and I was in a hospital training. I was very young, and one time the bombs came over, went right through the hospital, right through the morgue, and part of the floor was gone, right at the end of the building. And that was in the London area is very badly bombed. And then that's when I left there, and that's when I joined up. Believe me, it was an interesting 4 years. And we had a lot of fun, and then we had a lot of, you know, marching and stuff. We never had any flying or anything like that. I didn't do anything like that. You know, we just did what we had to do in our jobs and all that sort of thing. There was one time I was at the hospital and I was coming home. I'd been to see a movie, come to the hospital, back to the hospital. And I had to run like crazy because the bombs were coming over. And during the weekdays, they would come over in the morning, and people were going to work, mostly on foot. And they had to run, you know, for their lives. It was bomb, constantly. Because the beginning of the war, Britain was not ready. All they had was the Spitfires. And so we used to get, you know, upset because all the Germans would keep coming over, and nothing was being fired back to stop them. So finally, the Americans finally, as you know, got into it. And then they had what they called the 1,000 bomber raid, which they sent over 1,000 planes, which bombed the H out of Germany. And that's what brought the war to more or less, not to an end, but that's what helped to do that. So now, and then of course, tell you I was reassigned. I went to 3 camps. One was Killing Home. That's in Northamptonshire. I have to tell you a story on Water Beach. That was my first camp that you went to when you finished your training. I had missed the train, or did not the train exactly. I went zooming past all the stations, I suppose. I ended up in a town called Peterborough. And I thought, uh-oh, I've gone past Water Beach. Quite a long way past Water Beach. I had to come all the way back, and then I had what you call a kit bag. It was a bag you carry, you know, all your belongings in it. And I remember so well, it was a moonlight night. It was about, must have been 11 or 12 o'clock by the time I got to the camp, because I walked. And when I got there, there was no sheets, no nothing for the beds. So I slept, you know, with nothing on the beds, because whoever got there first got the sheets and everything. But then from that camp, we used to cycle to the main camp. That was just where we slept. And when we cycled to the main camp, where we had all the work to do and all that sort of thing. And that's where I met my husband in the Air Force. He was a transportation, well, with the vans and the trucks and taking stuff to different areas. And I've heard of people that were really badly bombed, the whole, especially in London. But on the outskirts, it wasn't, you know, that bad. But when you're young, and you know, I suppose when you're older, it's a very, very frightening thing when these bombs do not stop. They just keep coming. And later years, they found bombs, you know, buried maybe in gardens, in ground somewhere. And there's still bombs there now, I think, but they haven't, you know, found them yet. That's, you know, what they used to bury it into the ground. And then we had what you call air raid shelters. In London, they built air raid shelters along some of the streets, the main streets, so that you could run there at night time. As soon as they come over, as soon as you heard that siren, you ran. And then people put shelters in the back gardens and had shelters there. And I remember running to these shelters and getting in there, and you didn't come out till morning. You know, you couldn't come out because of the bombing. And this just went on and on and on, till finally, with the Americans coming over, it didn't lessen, but it was much, I shouldn't say better, but it helped us a lot, helped the English a lot. And there's other things, you know, that happened. And then you had your leave, and we used to go to town in the big trucks, you know, if we wanted to go to the movies or the pictures or eat out, things like that. And then I overstayed my pass once or twice, and then you got into trouble for that. And you signed in, you signed out, and all those, you know, kind of things you do. And but it was when I look back today, I think, did I do all that? You know, it's such a long, long time ago. But it was very interesting and you learned a lot, you know, with different things. And I'm afraid that's all I can think of right now to say. But then my daughter was born in England, and I came over here, and the first Queen Elizabeth I came on. And we came in the winter, which was a very bad crossing, very rough. And I never got a chance to see the Statue of Liberty either, because I was seeing to my daughter at the time. And then when we landed, it was pitch black, pitch black. It was frightening coming from another country to there, and I thought, what have I done? And from there, I lived in Brooklyn, you know, for quite a while. Then it was easy to get around at night. You had no problems and things like that. I lived with my husband's parents. Then we moved around, and then I landed up here. And I thank you very much for choosing me. If you want me to sing, I'll sing. Get the right note.
You pick it.
Hmm?
You pick the key. It's
Yeah.
your key.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the ocean white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you so much.